Everybody's talking about AI, but I'm confused. What do I actually need to know about it? Great question, Techie Tiger. I'm so happy you asked because, yeah, there's a ton of hype about AI. Lots of information about AI in the headlines about how it's going to affect our jobs and the economy and society and our all of the things. So let's take a pause and actually understand what it is. Because when we understand how something works, it gives us power. It gives us power for how to make decisions on how to use it or how not to use it. And sometimes both, right? We can use it in ways that are effective, and we can choose other tools that are more appropriate than just saying that this one tool can solve everything, because it can't. In this video, I will share 3 main points from my experience in the trenches of AI in this day and age for how we can use it effectively in our own lives as regular people. Okay, so my 3 main points. I will touch on them briefly and then we'll go into more details. Okay, number 1, AI is a tool. Just like any tool, it has appropriate uses and it has inappropriate uses. So we'll learn what those are and how to differentiate. Number 2, AI is a prediction machine. It is not like a typical mathematical formula where, x plus y always equals the same thing, or, 1 plus 2 always equals 3. AI is basically been trained on a lot of data to recognize patterns. And so when you give it an input, it takes that input, it matches against different patterns, and it makes a prediction about what might be the most accurate or most probable way to respond. Now, that prediction machine depends on its training data. What is its training data? We'll get into that also. Okay, number 3, AI systems are not private. These chatbots that you're using, they are not private. I will reiterate this so many times. If you are not paying for the service, then you, my dear friend, are the service, or your data and your attention are the service. So really keep that in mind. I don't pay for a lot of tools that I use, and I fully understand that the data that I give is probably going to be sold or used for training or other purposes. And so I am very aware of what I am sharing and very intentional about what I am not sharing. Okay, so that one hopefully is a little more self-explanatory than the other two. But let's dig into each of these 3 points in a little bit more detail. So you know me, I love my chalkboard and I like colors. So number 1, AI is a tool. And we'll just AI, not L. Cute. So just like any tool, there are ways that we should be using AI because it's really good at doing certain things. It's also really bad at doing certain things. But I want to take a step back and just very quickly say that AI is actually a really, really big category of things. It includes a lot of different types of AI models, which are effectively mathematical models that are tuned. I'm using intentional words, but if you're getting confused, don't worry about it. Basically, you take a bunch of training data and you update your mathematical model based on that training data, and then you can get out this AI model. I'm simplifying it, obviously. Okay, but there are lots of subcategories of AI. Typically, these days, when we're talking about AI, we're talking about large language models, or LLMs for short. This is what ChatGPT runs on. This is what Copilot runs on. This is what Gemini runs on. This is what Claude runs on. These are all LLMs, large language models. They are very good at text generation. Now, you also have image generation models. These are things like DALL-E or Midjourney. So these are good at image generation. So these large language models were trained on lots and lots and lots of text. Image models are trained in lots and lots and lots of images, similarly for video models. But all of these are a category of generation models. They create stuff. Or code, for example, text code, that type of thing. The code is just another language. Huh? There are also AI models that deal with image recognition or object detection, and a lot of these get bucketed under computer vision models. I'm lazy, so I'm just using acronyms, but CVs is computer vision. So this is like if you ask A computer vision model, hey, here's a picture. And if the model has been trained on dogs, let's say, it can be like, yes, this is a German Shepherd. Google has started doing this in Google Photos. You can search now for a dog, and if you have pictures of dogs, a dog will pop up. So that's an example of an image recognition model. Under that, there's also object detection. So that's like pointing out objects within an image. And actually, Google Images might use that because it's not classifying the entire image as a dog. Well, maybe I actually don't know how it works, but it might be classifying. So let's say you have a big image and then you have a dog over here. Okay, yep, there, sure, that's fine. Okay, we'll give the dog a snoot. So it might be bounding a box around the dog and being like, cool, there's an image of a dog in this photo. Or it might be labeling the whole thing as dog. Okay, so image recognition models. There's also speech recognition models. These are some of my favorites because I like languages. I think languages are fascinating. I'm gonna just bucket that under speech models. So these are things that allow us to talk to our computer. Woo! Like Star Trek. So speech to text and text to speech, so kind of allowing us to go both ways. You also have the ability to do live translations or live captions. So you can travel to a different country and speak your native tongue to somebody that speaks Spanish, let's say, or somebody that speaks a different language. There's a lot of y'all that speak Spanish. I do not. I have very baby Spanish. So I could actually speak English and help me and have a system help me converse with somebody who speaks Spanish. I'm getting very excited now. I'm tripping over my words because I'm so excited. Some of these technologies are incredible. I remember I was traveling in South America and I was no Spanish. That's why I'm baby Spanish now. And I was using Google Translate before we really had speech to text and text to speech. And it was really difficult. It worked. Okay. It was better than nothing. But I'm so excited to have the opportunity to travel now that we have the ability to do live captioning or live translations. Okay, so these are some of the other types of AI models. You also have a category of machine learning models or ML models, and these tend to be a lot more specific. These three categories of models are very general. You can apply them to lots of different situations and they can kind of handle those different situations appropriately. But machine learning models tend to be trained for a very specific application. So anomaly detection models are a really good example of this, where you can train a machine learning model to detect, let's say, if a specific motor changes the sound of its operation. This machine learning model might be like, hey, that's a different sound that indicates imminent failure, and you can catch problems before things actually happen because you've trained this model to look for standard behavior and to identify any deviations from that standard behavior. Okay, so all of that is to say, AI is a tool, but there are lots of different subcategories of tools. And so right now we're kind of using LLMs for everything. So we're like throwing the hammer at, we're saying everything is a nail and we have this hammer and like, oh, the problems are nails. Well, no, not really. And so I kind of just want to remind people that there are lots and lots of different types of AI models. And so the point is to use the one that is best suited for the job. You don't want an LLM for your image job, right? That's silly. We're not making ASCII art over here unless you really want to. That's kind of cute. But use an image model, use an image generation model, or if you want to, you have a project where you want to, you know, recognize issues with your plants or your crops, you would use a computer vision model. Okay, if you're curious about any of those, happy to dig in more. But I want to really dive into LLMs because this is really what's all over the news. And LLMs are really good at lots of things and really bad at even more things. The 5 areas that I would recommend you using LLMs for in today's world. Number 1, as a thought partner for brainstorming. I could probably shorten this. Brainstorming. AI is really, really good at giving you ideas. The ideas can be pretty bad, but at least you got something to work with. So for example, I hosted a Halloween party and I like to chat with AI about what Halloween foods should I make for the party. And it's really good at giving me top 10 fun Halloween party food ideas. I'm like, I hate this, I love that. And then you tweak your prompt a little bit. You're like, okay, well, what are some easy Halloween foods to make? It'll probably have some of the same ideas it gave you previously, but it'll have a couple new ones. And you can kind of tweak and say like, oh, okay, well, I like these and I like these ingredients, but I have a friend who's gluten-free, so give me something that works for that. So you can kind of have a conversation and you can brainstorm ideas. We're the ones that really understand what good ideas are, right? But as a brainstorming partner, it's really fun. My friends don't want to sit there and do this with me, so this is perfect. Okay, for some things they might, but maybe not for my Halloween party foods. Okay, it's also really good at drafting. So you can open, your favorite word editor of choice, and you can use AI to help get you started. Or what I love to do is to take my messy notes and be like, format this, give me an outline based on my notes, and then I can go and fill in the pieces. It is not very good at making polished content, or like what a lot of people have noticed. It has kind of this generic flat voice. You can kind of tell when AI has written something, even if someone has gone through the process of creating this really elaborate prompt. You're like, that feels weird to my brain. And the answer is yes, because it's good at drafting. It's not great at the polished final product. AI is also really good, whoopsies, organizing. There we go. Organizing and summarizing content. I'll just say summaries. So if you have a bunch of content and you want a shorter version, or if you have a lot of content and you need to restructure it, LLM is a great tool for this. It's also really good at translating and adapting content. So a really great example of this that I love so much is that one of my best friends is a teacher. She's a special ed teacher, and so she has students that have different reading levels. And so she will take her lesson plan and she will say, give me this lesson plan or give me this article that's appropriate for a student with a 5th grade reading level or a 9th grade reading level or an 11th grade reading level. And before ChatGPT or before Copilot, she just didn't have the time to do this because it's extremely time consuming to sit there and rewrite an article. But AI can do it lickety split. Great use for AI as a tool to help you with the things that you want to do or the things you really just don't have time to do. And finally, AI is really good at hold on, of course I forgot the last one. There's 3 things I want to cut in the government. I forgot the last one. Hold on. Oh yes, okay, there we go. This is one is a little bit of an outlier, but AI is actually also really good at helping. So it's a prediction machine, which we'll get to in a sec, but it's a really great place to start. And little secret, a lot of times when I'm making a video, I will chat with an AI to give me some help for how I might start the video or how I might structure the video. Or maybe, for my last video on energy, I wanted to hear what Carl Sagan had to say. I wanted to hear what Feynman had to say. I wanted to hear what all these different physicists had to say. And it's kind of hard sometimes to find the right quotes if I'm just using a search engine. But because a lot of these quotes are in the knowledge base of these AI models, of these LLMs, they actually can pull up those quotes when you know exactly what you want to learn. So it's a really great place to start if you want to learn something. Now, I would definitely recommend kind of getting away from AI once you want to get into the meat of things, because it's not really that its knowledge is broad, but it's not very deep. So, yes, it's good at helping, but you're smarter than the LLM, I promise you. Okay, so that is AI as a tool. These are the 5 main things that AI is a tool, and I should really say LLMs as a tool, the large language models, your ChatGPT, your Copilot, your Gemini. They're really, really good at these things. Definitely use them for these things, especially if you're like dreading that blank white page. If you love doing these things, that's awesome. If you're not having any problem with brainstorming or drafting or whatever, fantastic. No problem. You never have to use a tool that you don't need. But for a lot of us, definitely need these things. Not always, but sometimes. Okay, so that is point numero 1. Point numero 2. let's use a different color. So it is a prediction machine. Yes, I'm going to write it out. I love chalkboards. So basically what this means is that the output that we get from a large language model, and actually now that we know, but really I'm talking about LLMs. So large language models, not just AI as a whole. Well, actually, this one would fit. Okay. They're all prediction machines. All AI models are prediction machines. Okay, so this means that what you get out of an AI model, whether it is ChatGPT, DALL-E, or your anomaly detection for your to figure out if your motor is going to fail or not, wholly depends on the data that it was trained on. For LLMs, that means it was the internet. So basically, well, basically it was all the free content on the internet, but like we don't really know how much data companies like OpenAI grabbed, and honestly they don't even really either, because they need a ton of data to be able to train these really big models. There is a ton of free data on the internet. There's Wikipedia, there's Reddit, there's Instagram, there's Twitter, there's all of these public sites where they can go and scrape the data. And really what I mean by data is I mean people writing things and people having conversations. All of that became training data for LLMs. Now they did use books. Anything that was in the public domain went into training the OpenAI models. But I do want to highlight the fact that most, well, I shouldn't say most, but a ton of that data was people engaging with each other on the internet. And if you're watching this video, you have been on the internet and you understand that the way that people interact on the internet is very different than the way that we interact with each other in real life, right? Yeah, we can see each other in real life. We can have compassion and empathy. Oops, there's the microphone. I'm going to really make that point. We behave differently in person than we behave on the internet. So what we are getting out of LLMs is behavior that has been trained by people acting on the internet. So just really, I really want to highlight this. There's a lot of, research on how much bias there is in the training data and thus in the output of these LLMs, because the LLMs recognize patterns and they're not judging those patterns. There's no moral or ethical lens. There's no understanding of harm. And so these LLMs are just replicating these patterns. So that's my main sub point number one, is just whenever you interact with an LLM, take it with a grain of salt that LLM has been trained on the internet and then wrapped in kind of a software container to force it to be nice, basically, because they were like, nobody wants to be yelled at by our chatbot. That doesn't sound like fun. So anyway, so they've kind of wrapped it in a container to be like, don't be an asshole. Right? Okay. But the second thing that I wanna point out is that it's still different than conversing with a human, because if you you can say the same thing to an LLM and it may give you different results depending on time of day. This is different than talking to a human, maybe not. Time of day, what the last person said to it, what the last thing you said to it was, or even just there is some inherent randomness. So maybe you give it the same prompt 14 times and out of 13 times it gives you the same answer back, but 1 out of 14 it changes its response. So it's not reliable in the sense that a mathematical formula is reliable, or software code is reliable, like those logical operators and things like that. And so that's why it's really awesome to have AI models generate code, and also that code is not necessarily as good as what software engineers are writing. Because the LLM doesn't necessarily understand security. It doesn't understand, you know, what good code is or bad code. It just understands that it has seen a lot of different patterns, and there's probably a lot of examples of bad patterns or anti-patterns, as my colleagues call it. So it's a prediction machine. It is not. Uh, it is not truth. It is a prediction. Okay, full stop. And it is a prediction based on data from the internet. Okay, that's really what I want to highlight with that point. It's useful to have a conversation, but definitely don't trust it. And actually, yes, that's the other thing I wanted to mention. Be intentional about the types of things you are asking it about and what you are trusting or taking from it. So it's probably fine if you're like, hey, AI, like, what's a good restaurant in this city? What should I check out? That's cool. There's not really any negative repercussions for you to follow the advice of or follow the recommendation of the AI model in that case. But if you're asking an AI model for health information, I might suggest that you be really careful if you do that. Number one, because your data is not private. We'll get to that in a sec. But number two, because these models have not been trained like health professionals have been trained. Now, there are, there are a lot of companies that are working to fine tune these models, which is basically taking that foundation data and then adding additional data on top of it that is scoped and targeted to what they want the LLM to be good at recognizing. And those models are going to be better in making predictions related to health outcomes. However, your ChatGPT is not. It has not been trained on health data aside from the random stuff that it has seen on the internet, all this open source data stuff. So if you are using it for sensitive or like information that could be critical, information that has consequences, always get a second opinion, and that second opinion should at least be from a reputable source or a trusted person. Okay, all right. So I'm gonna. That's what I wanted to harp on for that second point. All right, and that brings me to our last point, number 3. I'm gonna make it green because I love green. AI is not private. If you are paying for ChatGPT, you actually may have some privacy with that. But in general, be very, very careful about the information that you give to any sort of chatbot. There have been instances of data leaks that are known. We know that these companies, whatever you type into that chatbot, they are using for training data unless you're paying for it. There have also been there's also evidence that some companies are selling the data that you put into their chatbot. So please be very careful about what you allow it to see and know about you, because that may be used in lots and lots of different ways that you don't appreciate. If you don't care, great. You understand, and now you are empowered to make the decision that best works for you. Cool. That's why I'm here. I'm not here to judge your choices. I'm just here to give you the information so you can make a choice that best works for you. The other thing that I wanted to say about privacy, yeah, okay, maybe that's it. It's not private. Oh, yes, okay. I would say that the larger tech companies are going to be the ones that are a bit more responsible with your data, just because, they've been around the block. They do not want to put any more targets on their back than they already have. And again, if you are paying for these services, then it is private. So, I have access to Microsoft Copilot, the Enterprise Edition, and that one, they do not look at any of the data because no enterprise company will purchase an AI model where they know that their potentially sensitive business information is getting used for training. So I do know for a fact that Microsoft Copilot Enterprise Edition does not use any of its input data for training purposes. All of that is private and confidential to whichever company is paying for it. I can't really speak to the other models. I do know that the paid tiers of ChatGPT are a bit more private. I would assume that their enterprise tier does the same, but I haven't read their terms and conditions. So if that matters to you, just make sure you are checking what their conditions are. Let's be informed, right? We have power. We just need to be informed. Okay, all right. So I have ranted and raved and rambled and recommended all the lovely R words, and hopefully taught you something useful. as you go out and use or talk about or choose not to use these AI tools. It's all about understanding how they work so that we can make informed choices. Okay. Thank you very much for watching. Please, please, please reach out if you have any questions about AI. Like I said, I am steeped in it. I have been working with it for a number of years, like in the eye of the hurricane. I would love to share my knowledge and talk about what I have learned and share my recommendations and my thoughts. Also, I would love to hear y'all's thoughts. How are you using it? How are you not using it? What are you concerned about? There's a lot to talk about. It is a big thing that is changing our society, and I really, I really believe that it is a tool that can be very, very useful if we design and build it appropriately, which is why I am working in it on it. And also, it's really important that all of y'all understand that you have power as people in society. You do have power. The things that you are concerned about, make them heard. And if if a tool isn't private and that concerns you, don't use it. And in making that choice, you are making a statement to the company, and yes, they are paying attention. Okay. Whew. I was very passionate about this. All right. This was lovely. Thank you so much for hanging out with me. And please let me know. You are also welcome to ask me any other questions about science, tech, engineering, and mathematics, and I'm happy to dig into those as well. Thank you so much for hanging out, and we'll see you next time. Bye.